What's going on, everyone? My name is Nicholas Merton here from DataDash, and today is December 2nd of 2024. Well, folks, I hope you all are having a fantastic day wherever you are, because in today's video, I not only have an imperative update when it comes to Bitcoin's price action and the critical level we need to see the bulls hold in order to continue higher in the short term, but beyond that as well, we've got to talk about the biggest unknown, the biggest X factor when it comes to determining Bitcoin's price. It's not the Bitcoin ETFs, it's not the upcoming Trump administration, it is everything to do with one company, and that is MicroStrategy. And I have yet to see anyone really do a proper job of simply explaining how MicroStrategy has been able to play such a big role in determining Bitcoin's price and acquire so much Bitcoin. So I hope to do that in today's video. If you happen to enjoy it and get something out of it, consider dropping a like. I'm a little bit sick now, so if you guys can stick with me here, I really appreciate it. Grab a cup of coffee. We got a lot to unpack here in today's video. If you enjoy it, consider dropping a like as always. So let's go ahead and kick off the price analysis. I'm going to keep it brief here, guys. It's really simple. Bitcoin has yet to claim that $100,000 level, which again, a lot of people are hodling and hoping for. As we talked about, there's a very good chance we don't hit that level, especially here in the near term, which is why I really would advise caution here when it comes to expectations of Bitcoin's price. I'm not trying to be negative, but we've had lower relative highs here. Bitcoin's made a phenomenal set of returns over the past month. And right now, what we need to see the bulls do is they need to come and show up here at the 21-day moving average pocket. That is the biggest thing here, because it is also directly in alignment. I don't think it's coincidence within the line of resistance from the two prior highs back in 2021. This is an imperative level to hold. And if we don't hold it, especially after such an explosive month, I would not be surprised to see some of these gains come back and us finding support in the next couple of weeks on the 100-day moving average, which is all the way down here. Now, of course, it's moving up over time, so probably somewhere in the 80K range, which is totally fine and healthy. It wouldn't be the end of the world. I'm not saying that this is some reason to be doomerist around Bitcoin. I'm just saying here at the end of the day that we could see some pullback. Now, I want to go ahead, though, and talk about this past month, because we had an explosive month for Bitcoin. From the early part of November, we essentially saw a retest on the 21-day from around $68,000, $69,000 all the way up here to $99,000. That is a huge move. In fact, it was one of the biggest months on record for Bitcoin. So I want to go ahead and talk about why this happened here. It has to really do with one company, and that's MicroStrategy. Now, a lot of people, I think, really haven't looked at the data and the numbers and realized how big of a dynamic MicroStrategy has become in determining Bitcoin's price. It was the reason we saw the price action we saw this month, right? The first thing we need to talk about here is that ETF inflows already are looking pretty great, right? We've had two 70K plus months of 70,000 Bitcoin being acquired each month by the ETFs, from the BlackRock ETF or iShares ETF, as well as Fidelity and all the other players. But that's not really what's driving price to this extent. What has done that is the massive acquisition of new Bitcoin purchased by MicroStrategy within the past month. Now, how was MicroStrategy able to acquire 134,000 Bitcoin? So much that if you combine it with the amount from the ETF this month, it's basically nearly 1% of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist. Well, we have to understand how MicroStrategy is able to raise debt in order to fund its purchases of Bitcoin. This is how it's doing it. It's not through its revenues. It is purely, at the end of the day, through an IOU or a convertible note that allows them to essentially raise capital from speculators and investors so that they can go through and purchase Bitcoin. I'm going to try to explain this as best as I can today. Now, I want to clarify here. When we talk about convertible note or debt at the end of the day, it sounds all fancy. This is essentially a way for MicroStrategy to raise capital in a way that at the end of the day is either going to be fully repaid back to the lender, ideally, or it's going to give them an opportunity to be able to make a large amount of money if Bitcoin and MicroStrategy continue moving higher. So let's go ahead and talk about this here. Now, what we are talking about here, when I talk about this illustration, this is MicroStrategy's stock chart, okay? So we're talking about MSTR, right? And I'm not going to be using like the real data here. I'm just purely conceptually trying to explain that what we're talking about, this convertible note that lenders who are giving capital to MicroStrategy to go buy Bitcoin, they are essentially getting a convertible note that has relevancy to MicroStrategy's share price, not Bitcoin, okay? So what we're essentially doing here with this is that, let's put ourselves in the role of the lender who's giving MicroStrategy capital so we can kind of understand this. Let's say I'm someone with $1 billion. And right now, I'm not really interested in getting 3 or 5% in a savings account or a CD or US treasuries. I want to have something that either is going to protect and preserve my principal. I'm going to have $1 billion here today, or I'm going to have $1 billion in 4 or 5 years' time. Or I have the opportunity to make a really big return within a matter of probably just a couple of months. And that's exactly what this IOU or convertible note is for MicroStrategy. What MicroStrategy is saying to us as lenders is they're saying, hey, look, you've got $1 billion. We would really love $1 billion right now. We can guarantee you that in 4 or 5 years' time, you are either going to be paid back your principal, no interest, so you're not going to get anything in the meantime. However, if our share price goes from our example price here of $100, this is when the IOU is issued, this is what it's currently trading at in the market. If it goes to 150, you essentially have a strike price, or a point in which you can convert your convertible note into discounted shares in the company, meaning that you'll get them at that $100 price tag, and the market rate when it hits that strike price is at $150, meaning you're up 50% on your capital, right? So essentially for the IOU holder, they have this opportunity to either pretty much get their principal back, or they have this opportunity to potentially make a huge return if that strike price happens. Now, of course, they could sell the shares right away, in order to minimize risk. They can continue holding it. Maybe the stock price goes up. Again, it could also as well, just to kind of showcase there are multiple scenarios here for that bondholder. Maybe they hit the strike price here and then price starts going down. So they could be at risk. So we're going to really be explaining this here. There are a couple different scenarios. But the main point here is that it looks favorable to the bondholder, especially when MicroStrategy is trending higher, because you have this opportunity to make a big amount of capital. This is why a lot of institutions and investors are kind of leaping forward towards this MicroStrategy plan. It's why there's also been such a big premium, as MicroStrategy is really the only company in town doing this on a large extent in the public markets, that makes it a lot easier for these institutions who are in the bond markets and those who are investing in convertible notes to be able to tap these opportunities. Now, I want to go ahead, though, and talk about the important realities here. Now, obviously, that was the good scenario. If we hit our strike price and it continues to move higher, we can sell or we can let it ride and take a little extra risk, right? That's the good scenario. But what's the bad scenario? Well, the bad scenario here is that essentially the stock price could top out from that point. Maybe even it goes up for a little while, but it doesn't hit the strike price and it's just trending down here like our other model scenario. What happens then for the lender? Well, they essentially for 4 or 5 years are going to see no interest, no returns, and they're going to get their principal back, hopefully. Now, of course, there is some liquidation risk if MicroStrategy, for example, if their Bitcoin holdings go low enough and they, for example, don't have enough to pay back against their average purchase price on the convertible notes, there could be some default risk. There could be some risk of not being able to basically meet back to the obligations of the debt on the debt that they've borrowed. But that's quite far away. I'm not here to even say that that's going to happen or that it's going to be the FTX of this cycle. Of course, there's always a chance of that. The MicroStrategy could be the kind of FTX, Celsius type situation in this cycle where, again, essentially MicroStrategy is levering up to the tits in order to buy as much Bitcoin as possible. There's no other way to say it, right? But it's important to understand here that this is a kind of speculative bet that MicroStrategy is taking, that they believe there's a good chance the share price is going to keep moving higher because Bitcoin is going to keep moving higher. It's going to continue being more scarce. And for the lenders in this case, they have an opportunity to be able to potentially benefit from that. So this is a very important dynamic to understand here when it comes to how MicroStrategy is borrowing. And this basically means that there needs to be two things happening. MicroStrategy's share price needs to continue maintaining a steady rate to the upside. And that also means that Bitcoin needs to move up. Now, this is really where the big question mark comes in here, which is that essentially, the question we have on our minds here is MicroStrategy going to be able to continue getting enough people to keep lending it capital for the next 4 or 5 years at no interest on hopes that the price is going to move higher, the MicroStrategy share price, right? Because if they can't, then a lot of this price action is going to start to unwind down very fastly, as fast as it potentially went up. Because right now, there are a lot of sellers on the market. MicroStrategy, the ETFs, they're the few things that are really actually driving price higher. What's happening right now with long-term holders, traders, and speculators, a lot of them are selling, right? And we can already see signs of this here, essentially, as the MicroStrategy acquisition, right, has happened, played a big role in the price here. The question is whether or not we're going to have enough general buyers on the market as well to continue sustaining price, or if we're going to see increased sell side pressure, because that could be the single domino that stops MicroStrategy's ability to be able to continue buying this much Bitcoin, to continue borrowing capital from people who think it's going to move higher and higher, right? At the end of the day, guys, while I like Bitcoin fundamentally, I'm not here to say that this is a Ponzi scheme, because technically it's not. MicroStrategy's financials are transparent. The risk is there. It's clear. At the end of the day, this is definitely a sort of game of musical chairs that for now, everything's great. Punch bowl's full. Everyone's having a good time. But eventually, there will be more sell side pressure than buy side pressure, most likely. And because of that, that can very well put an end to MicroStrategy's stock premium, its ability to continue borrowing, and continuing to fuel this kind of out of nowhere demand for Bitcoin that really wasn't present to such a large extent back a couple of months ago. So that's a very important thing to understand here, the whole kind of MicroStrategy plan, how big of a role it plays within Bitcoin's price. I hope this explanation helped you guys. If it did, consider dropping a like. Let me know in the comments if you liked it. But overall, this is a pretty good, simple visualization here of how it could really play out at the end of the day. Now, I wanted to go ahead, though, and while we understand, the 21-day and the significance, this important dynamic of MicroStrategy, I want to talk about the altcoin market because that's really where we're trading. We're not looking to really trade Bitcoin here, but continued Bitcoin strength is definitely good for the altcoin market and the overall valuation of crypto assets. So it's important to keep that in mind. But right now, it's important to see here that when it comes to the altcoin dominance or others.d, this is the measurement of all the cryptos beyond the top 10. Essentially what we see here is that we're coming up to test the 200-week. We were able to maintain support here back last week on the 200-day moving average. This is really good to see. But right now we are facing some short-term resistance, not to mention the near-term resistance line from here in July is also likely in play here. It could be a bit subjective. Some people might say it's somewhere in this kind of pocket of range here. Irrespective, it's the kind of range we would expect maybe a short-term cool down on altcoins, especially as Bitcoin is starting to wane a little bit. And it's a matter of finding support on that 21-day moving average and not going below the 200-day, which was resistance for multiple months here throughout the year. So that's what I'd be looking for here. Not saying it's guaranteed by any means, but I think there's a good chance we come down into those 21 days as they start to come up and provide potential support. And that can be a great discount opportunity to get into a lot of altcoin plays for a continued not only surge of maybe Bitcoin's price, but beyond that as well. Just generally speaking, in the altcoin space's dominance can continue surging higher. Again, we are far away still from where we were back here in December. And with a higher Bitcoin valuation, that is going to allow for altcoin market cap to also move up when they have their heyday, when they have their moment. And it looks like we're getting closer and closer to that. We can even see Ethereum, for example, finally getting back above the 21-day again, looking a lot more resilient than last time, a lot less downward volatility or downside sell-side pressure when testing that 100-day. I'd be looking for a nice support on that 21-day. If we can finally hold that, which we haven't been able to do since we broke it back here in July of 2024, that is my cue. And at the end of the day, for altcoins to really start trending higher, because we already have all the boxes ticked off here. We have others dominance, banking support in the 200-day. We have others market cap above the 200-day. ETH potentially making that support on the 21-day moving average. That would be the final cue here, and that's when really you can start to get a lot of the really crazy speculative returns that everyone's looking forward to. And if you guys are interested to know what plays we're going to be buying, if you want to be prepared and know which trades that we're making, you can always sign up for the dashboard down below. We've got our Black Friday sale we've kind of extended here because I wanted to clarify on a couple things here. We are going to be having a discount for those who want to sign up for the Dash report. We'll possibly be raising prices down the line. But the big thing above all is that if you want to try for the monthly subscription, you can get access to it for $35 a month. However, the first month we're going to give a $15 discount for those of you who sign up. So once you sign up, just reach out, let me know via email through our support email that you recently signed up and you want the $15 recompensated for the first month. Afterwards, it'll bill at the normal $35. And if you sign up for the annual, we'll give a free month compensation. So essentially, basically 1/12 of the annual purchase rate we'll give back for you as an subscriber. There are a lot of different things that you get access to. We just sent out the dashboard this month. We've got some really cool altcoin picks in there that I think you guys are going to like. Some that you might have heard of on the channel, but also some that we haven't talked about on the channel. But beyond that as well, we've also got a lot of really interesting things going on outside of crypto. I don't want to be like a dead horse, guys, but if you're not looking beyond crypto, if you're not looking at the equity markets, you are missing on some big opportunities. One of the plays and areas that we talked about is kind of our emerging narratives. We're looking for a lot of new sectors that could become the new big tech companies of the next run up over the next couple of years that could really multiply 20, 30 fold from the current valuation. Not hyperbolic, that's really possible for many names out there. We've already seen, for example, Rocket Lab, which is in our aerospace and defense narrative. This has definitely been an emerging one over the past couple of months. From back in November when we first wrote about it, we've seen the stock go up 566% here during that window of time. This is, again, one of many examples that have done really well and in many cases have outpaced a lot of altcoins in the crypto market. So again, I want to echo this point that there's going to be a lot more opportunity long-term in the equity markets for those kind of returns, as there are a lot of new emerging sectors. So keep that in mind. Consider giving it a try. You guys can always sign up for the monthly and just see if you like it. If you don't, you can cancel it. That's totally fine. But at the end of the day, it is where some of our best traders and community members are. And there's a lot of really great resources. The mid-month webinar where you guys can ask me questions, as well as exclusive market updates and trade alerts that are going to help you guys get a cutting edge on the market. So definitely consider checking that out down below in the description. I also wanted to, again, let you guys know about the important Gonna Make It ETF marketplace airdrop that's going on right now. Again, as many of you know, we're focused on looking at a lot of the different narratives of the market. And one thing that I've noticed is that both DeFi and NFTs have made a big surge over the past month. If you look at the data, the prices or the floor price for a lot of different pairings are starting to go up big time. And this is something that Tommy, the founder of Energy, has been betting on. So Gonna Make It is the major NFT marketplace on the Energy Network, which is one of our top L1 protocols that we keep it on here on the channel. That's hyper-focused on security, and not to mention has a whole range of feature benefits for the broader NFT space, not only theft protection, but along with that, the guaranteed royalties for artists, which were taken away from OpenSea and many major marketplaces that really killed a lot of the NFT marketplace. So essentially, GMI is going through its airdrop right now. There are a whole range of ways you can participate where you don't have to put any capital. There are, of course, ways where you can provide liquidity or engage in trading on the platform. But overall, I highly recommend you guys consider participating in the GMI airdrop Season 5 campaign that's going on right now. There's 25 days left. Lots of ways where you can benefit from sharing on X, as well as referring people to the platform and so much more. So definitely take a look at the website. It's airdrop.gonnamakeit.com. I'll leave a link down below in the description so you guys can participate. But again, as always, I want to thank Energy for being one of our partners here on the channel. It's a really great platform in the L1 space. And I definitely think overall their focus on security is going to position them quite well in the next few months. There really isn't any network that has that same degree of security. Last but not least, I wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about equities, because as you all know, at this point, I probably said this as well many times, I've beaten it like a dead horse. The S&P 500 is finally testing back up to this long-term line of resistance that's made up of the roaring 20s back in the 1920s, nearly 95 years ago. But along with that as well, the dot-com bubble. And now we are finally setting a third test of that line. And this is a very interesting turn of events. We actually write a little bit about this in this month's article in the Dash Report. We talk about this within the article, essentially that this line of resistance is imperative. To see how price reacts with this is going to determine the direction of crypto, the direction of equities, likely for the next 6 to 12 months. So even if you're in crypto and you think that, I don't really care about what's going on in the stock market, the S&P 500, blah, boring, 15, 20, 25% annualized returns. I don't want that. I want, altcoins. This is still imperative to watch because it is a risk gauge for where markets are heading as a whole, where asset prices are heading as a whole. And right now, luckily, it looks like the bulls might have the lead here, depending on what time frame you're looking at and how you'd specifically draw out the logarithmic line of resistance. Overall, it's looking like we've not only found support on the 21-day yet again, but we're spending more and more time here around this line or getting above it slightly. And that is a sign that we might be in for a euphoric blow-off top, the likes of which we haven't seen since the dot-com bubble or the roaring 20s. So we write about that in this month's newsletter and some of the important dynamics to understand that I think will help put some context and color to the situation that we're currently in. So I definitely recommend you guys, again, check out the recent newsletter. It just got sent out. But above all, volatility is still, just incredibly low here. It's still got a ways that it could possibly go here to where it was back in May, right? We still got a ways to go potentially before we really see some kind of surge in volatility or some pullback in the stock market. And this is where, again, there are a lot of really awesome opportunities here in a variety of these different stocks. So just keep in mind that there's opportunity elsewhere in the market other than crypto. We need to have our sights everywhere. We need to have a 360-degree view on the opportunities that are out there. And we need to make sure we know how to filter down the noise, because there are a lot of people telling you things left and right of what you should do. But we need to be focused on the data. We need to be focused on what the market's telling us. We need to be listening to price action primarily. And there is clear evidence here that asset markets right now are still maintaining good strength. The question is, when we start to not see strength against those moving averages, when there starts to be signs of weakness, how will you prepare yourself? Will you be ready? Will you be disciplined? Will you be able to know when it's time to sell? Those are the important things that I want you guys to keep on your mind here, because there are a lot of people out there in the altcoin space who are 100% exposed, people who bought one stock and they're all in it. And at the end of the day, they're going to tell you that I'm certain it's going to be a 10x. I'm going to wait and sell later in the future. I can tell you this, I've met many people over the years when it comes to investing and trading in financial markets. And when it comes to taking profits along the way or having your key levels where you sell, like moving averages, people who followed that route, I met very few people who regretted the decision to do that and weren't able to continue building generational wealth afterwards. But I met a lot of people who fumbled the bag so badly that they ended up going right back to where they were when they began investing, even though they had a 5 or 10x, or they ended up actually losing money, holding the bag forever. Don't get caught in that, guys. Don't fall for the hodl mentality, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's altcoins. There are major cycles and moves, and sometimes it can make sense to lock in profits, or at least make sure that you're not 100% exposed into one particular bet. So I rambled on a good amount here, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, consider dropping a like. It's a great way to support the channel. Again, check out the dashboard down below for this Black Friday sale that we still got going on here on the channel. This is going to be the last week we'll be able to do it. So if you guys want to sign up for it, we're still keeping it open. Hope you guys are doing well. Have a phenomenal rest of your day, and I'll see you guys right back here on Monday. Take care, everyone.